You're listening to The Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with Lyndia Grant.
Good evening, Radio 1 listeners. Thank you for tuning in to The Lyndia Grant Show. We're here with you every Friday talking about health and success and education and politics and on and on and on. So we are here this week. We're going to talk to Dr. Julianne Malvo on Spirit 1340 WYCB, the oldest gospel station in the nation, founded by Kathy Hughes, the one and only. So we're glad to be here. Dr. Julianne is former president of Bennett College. She is one of two emeritus presidents. She's the president of Rainbow Push, the youth organization of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. She served as a dean out in Los Angeles. She's a speaker extraordinaire, and she's done so much. You can go to her website, Dr. Julianne Malvo, author, speaker extraordinaire. She's going to talk to us a little bit about politics today. Dr. Julianne, how are you?
I am wonderful, Lyndia. Thank you so much always for having me, and thank you for the work that you've been doing in our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me begin. We're all so excited. I call it election excitement about the way that Vice President Kamala Harris has risen to the top of the Democratic ticket. She was certified as the official nominee through I guess they did it virtually. All the delegates had to vote, and she came out on top, as we knew she would. And people are so excited. She's gotten endorsements from many of the unions, almost all the unions, actually.
She has.
She has just been, what people are relating to is her joy, her energy. People like her vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz from Minnesota, governor of Minnesota. He reminds you of your old white uncle. I shouldn't put it like that, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
He seems very solid. And he's also very energetic. Now, the two of them are within 2 years of each other. I think she'll be 60 this year. He's maybe 61 or 62. But this is a whole 2 decades younger than the Orange Man. And J.D. Vance is the best thing I can say about him is that he's interesting. Very interesting. He continues to say very silly things. But I'm not going to talk about him right away. I'm going to talk about essentially what the vice president is doing and how people are responding to it. And people are responding with enthusiasm. Now, she got a Time magazine cover, which is a beautiful cover. It was so beautiful that, unfortunately, the Orange Man couldn't contain himself. You know, he has challenges with women. He said she looked so good, she almost looked like Melania.
Yes, he called her beautiful, didn't he?
He called her beautiful. So she almost looked like Melania. Now, nobody is looking for Melania. In fact, we haven't seen her. We don't know what she looks like anymore. But that's hilarious to me. But, again, that man really is hilarious. Back to the vice president. We're all going. I'm trying to pack my bags now to get myself to Chicago for the Democratic National Convention. And many of us are. It's going to be amazing. And what can we say? It's her time. It is definitely her time. Now it's not. We can't really celebrate. We can. I don't know what we can do. But here's the deal. It's not. She doesn't have it. She has a shot at it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of refuting that needs to be done. There are a lot of people who really do believe the Orange Man when he lies. He Monday night had an interview, whatever it was, or a brofest with Elon Musk. They talked for 2 hours. In the 2 hours, he told lies, just like he did at his press conference on August 8th. On August 8th, NPR has checked him and said he told 2 lies a minute, over 120 lies. But that's what he does. And we don't need to dwell on it. Here's the biggest flaw, I think, for Vice President Harris. Sometime soon she has to do a serious news conference. Sometime soon she has to answer questions. And I know that a lot of people feel like she should take her time and enjoy what they're calling a sugar high. It's not a sugar high. It's exuberance. But a lot of people think she doesn't have to do one. I think she should. But it's on her time, her timing, and so I'm not the one to say when it should happen. But here's what we do know. Even the orange man's best friends are telling him to stop with the personal attacks. He keeps calling her a low IQ individual. We know that anybody who went to Harvard is not low IQ. Mm-hmm. You know that anybody whose daddy paid their way and said, Wharton, well, we have to raise questions about their IQ. But we're not going to go there. That's name calling. What we're simply going to say is, okay, Lyndia, you're going to forgive me. Y'all going to make me lose my mind up in here. I just have to say that when this man says that pictures of the crowd in Detroit last week, he says they were created by artificial intelligence. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I couldn't believe it.
And there was a young man who was interviewed on one of the programs, and they showed a picture of him in the crowd, and he had the same T-shirt on. He said, I'm not artificial intelligence. I'm, a real person. So the thing is that, the orange man is just kind of
reaching.
He's evolving. He's melting down. He can't help it. He doesn't know that he's got to deal with this woman. He's going to have to debate her, and he just doesn't want to. And so he keeps coming up with stuff. And other thing he's doing, we should be clear, from his appearance at NABJ last week to the clowning he's doing, he's also setting the stage for his deranged supporters to say she cheated. The first thing he said about the Detroit hangar, she cheated. That wasn't it. So as long as you use words like cheated, those who are not doing their own research will agree with him. So it's not good. But, she's just, what I said, I wrote a piece this week called Glory, Grace, and Joy. And, she has been so gracious, and I applaud her. I don't think she should ever stoop to his level. She has other people who can do that. She should never respond to him. Let other people do it. But what she exudes is joy. You can't help but smile when you see her on stage. When she walks on there like she owns it. It's for us as Black women, it's just so exciting. So this election excitement is going to keep going. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. And all we can do is smile about it. Now, meanwhile, back at the ranch, we have, of course, the idiot who had a 2-hour conversation, or wasn't quite 2 hours, with Elon Musk, the multi-billionaire, the richest man in the world, who said he'll pay for Trump to win. Why is that? That's all I'm going to say about that. Why is that? What does he get from Trump winning? But their conversation, I guess it served the Trump team. It didn't serve anybody else. And then you have Mr. J.D. Vance, who now has his wife defending him. When he said childless cat ladies, he really didn't mean it. It was just a quip. She goes on to say she should have stopped right there. You shut your mouth when you're ahead. No. What she said was, if people were trying to get pregnant and they couldn't, that was okay. But if you're not trying to have kids, there's something wrong with that. Well, why?
Right.
I don't have no kids, but I have 6 godchildren who love me dearly, 700-some Bennett Bells, most of who love me somewhat. I love the young people, and I engage them, and I don't have to have none. And nobody knows why people make those decisions. But those are decisions that people make. So if you're upping somebody's Kool-Aid, and you need to stop. Anyway, that whole coterie of people, it seems to me, Vice President nominee Tim Walz said it best. They're weird.
Yes, they are.
They're weird. Now, I'm going to get off domestic politics for just a minute to talk about what's going on in the world. We really are. We're not, Mr. Trump likes to talk about us like we're about to implode. That's not what's happening. However, we should be concerned about a couple of things. Ukraine is giving Russia their lunch. They have invaded into Russia. Now, they can't keep it there. They don't have the truth, quite frankly. But they're shaking Russia up like, no, we're not scared. We are going to do our thing. However, if it becomes more unstable in Ukraine, the United States may be on the hook. And then, of course, Iran has vowed to retaliate against Israel, who killed one of their major leaders. Again, what does that mean to the United States? We are living in a relatively unstable world, but it's not one that's falling off the precipice. And President Biden, in his last few months, is trying to negotiate stability in both of those places. Now, let's talk about...
We don't have enough time, Dr. J. We're at 11 now, so we got to stop.
All righty. I do it every time, don't I?
Yes. You didn't look at the clock. Thank you, though.
All righty. Thank you. Take care.
All right. We're going to go to our commercial break, and we'll be back in a moment.
If it wasn't for my care coach at AmeriHealth, I probably wouldn't be so healthy right now. As a man, we don't get checkups or see a doctor regularly anyways. It's probably just a man thing because none of my partners go either. We know we should, but we just don't, and hope it works out.
So what changed for you?
AmeriHealth assigned me a care coach, somebody that gives one-on-one help, answer questions, explain things, and help set my appointments. She also helped me understand what having high blood pressure really means and ways to manage it so it doesn't kill me. It ain't nothing to play with. If you're a member of AmeriHealth, ask for a care coach. I'm glad I got mine.
At AmeriHealth, if you need a care coach, you can have one. Just call us at 1-877-759-6224 to get connected. 1-877-759-6224. This program is funded in part by the government of the District of Columbia Department of Healthcare Finance. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Washington Informer religion columnist Lyndia-Grant.
Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated Montgomery bus. In lectures on brotherhood, Ms. Parks often said, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired. But that wasn't true. I was not tired physically. I was not old. I was 42. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in." Driven out of Montgomery by harassment and death threats, Detroit, Michigan became her new home. Rosa Parks will always be remembered as the mother of the civil rights movement. Raised in the AME church, she once said, "I remember finding such comfort and peace while reading the Bible."
Read more in the religion column of the Washington Informer, an award-winning African-American newspaper. We don't report crime or gossip, just positive news. Pick up the Washington Informer or visit us online at washingtoninformer.com. Call 202-561-4100 for more information.
This is Frank Smith with the African American Civil War Museum in Washington, D.C., located at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest on the Green Line. Did you know that a recent study found that children who visit museums do better in school and in life than children who do not? So parents, teachers, and preachers, let's get moving. I promise you, if you bring your children to the African American Civil War Museum, they will be inspired by the images that they see. They will be impressed by our living history reenactors who are always available, and they will be involved in our scavenger hunt that takes them throughout our exhibit. That's the African American Civil War Museum, 1925 Vermont Avenue. Our hours are 10 to 6:30 on weekdays, 12 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. See it. Be inspired.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia-Grant Show. Now we're going to go to the second half of our show for this week. I am talking to one of my all-time favorites, Dr. Gail Nunlee-Bland. She is the head, I believe, of the endocrinology department at the Howard University Hospital. She'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I know she works with type 2 diabetes for children and adults. And I have invited Dr. Bland here today to talk to us about Ozempic. Talk to us about, give us the basics about diabetes, because there's always someone listening, Dr. Bland, who may not know that they can turn their A1C around. So let's talk about that part first, and then we'll go into this new drug that seems to be the rage called Ozempic. How are you today, Dr. Bland?
I am doing well, and thank you for the invitation. As always, I enjoy talking to you and your listeners.
So glad to have you back. Talk to them about, in a short version of how people can protect themselves from diabetes the way the old-fashioned way before Ozempic?
Well, diabetes is controllable. And I always say that. And it can be controlled with diet, exercise, and medication. And the medicines that we have used in the past, and we continue to use them, include metformin, which I know many people may know about. Sometimes they may need insulin injections. And we have another class of drugs, which we call SGLT2s, which have been helpful in terms of preventing the kidney damage that can occur with diabetes, particularly if you don't keep your blood sugars under control. So, one of the tests that we measure to determine if your diabetes is under control is your A1C. And we like for that to be less than 7. And so with all of these medications that we have available, we can get most of our patients to that level. And as you mentioned, and I'll talk about the Ozempic, which is the hot rage of the diabetes medication world, we're able to do all of that. So this is something that we don't have to have blindness, we don't have to have amputations, we don't have to have dialysis that, many people associate with diabetes. And it really, saddens me when I see people when they're in the dialysis unit for their uncontrolled diabetes, or they've lost a limb because their diabetes wasn't controlled, or they can't see, they're blind because their diabetes was not under control. This is all preventable. We can do this.
Mm-hmm. I like to let people know how I got on this journey when it happened to my mom, and I'll keep it short. But my mother had diabetes that we know of 12 years before she passed, which meant she obviously had it before, but that was back in the 80s. And I don't think back then, Dr. Bland, the 70s and the 80s, the early 80s, I don't think they check for it every time now when you have a physical. But I know that she had it and didn't know it. So then she had a stroke, a bad stroke. It was at Howard University Hospital right there where you work. Mm-hmm. And somehow the diabetes came in. They found out that she had type 2 diabetes, and it was pretty, far down the list, because she didn't have kidney dialysis yet, but eventually she got to that. So she ended up having a bunch of strokes, maybe as many as 10. She had kidney failure, and eventually the last few years of her life she had to have dialysis. And she had one leg amputated, and less than a year she had to have the other leg amputated. So she had high blood pressure first. That's one thing we knew about. She had that for many years. So I just wanted to say, and Dr. Bland can expound on this, that families not knowing is the reason why we share this information, because so many people think it's like cancer. There may be ways to avoid cancer, but most of the time you might end up not being able to turn it around, depending on how far along you are. But I've heard Dr. Bland and Dr. Sharita Hill Golden said, doesn't matter, even if you are far down the road with diabetes, you can turn it around, because I know mine got out of control twice, and my A1C got up to 15 HbA1c, but I was able to bring it back down to 6 and 7. So, Dr. Bland, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the blood pressure, the strokes, the elevated cholesterol, the heart disease. All of these things can go with diabetes. I always like to think of the ABCs. We talk about the A1C, which we know that we need to control, and that's associated with the blood sugar. And the B stands for blood pressure. And, if you don't control your blood pressure, that can lead to your strokes and your heart attacks, as well as your cholesterol, which stands for C. So when we're evaluating our patients with diabetes, we're always looking at those three things. We're looking at in terms of their A1C, trying to control their blood sugar. We want to control their blood pressure. We like for that top number to be no higher than 130 and the bottom number no higher than 80. And the C, cholesterol, and we look at the bad cholesterol, which is your LDL cholesterol. We want that less than 100. And we want that good cholesterol, which is your HDL cholesterol, above 40. So when you go to the doctor and if you have diabetes, you should ask them about those ABCs to see where you are, and we can present that. So, good blood pressure control. So we have great blood pressure medications that we use now. We have great cholesterol medications that we can lower these, the bad cholesterol. So we can prevent a lot of the complications associated with diabetes. And again, it's so preventable if you do everything in terms of the diet, your exercise, and your medication.
And I also learned when I was working with the dietitian that you do need some carbs because I was being checked daily, I think it is, and so I could understand what my food was doing. And some days when I thought I was eating super good, just having meats and vegetables, if the vegetables didn't have very many carbs, my blood sugar still would raise because she told me that I still need some carbs. It took some time for me to learn the balance. You have to have some. You just can't have too much sweets and too much carbs, but you do need some.
Yes. And that is so important. And a lot of times people feel as though they shouldn't eat any carbs, but you do. You still need some carbs. It's important in terms of, actually building up your muscles, feeding your liver, feeding your brain. So we do need some. And as you said, not too much, though.
And that's the problem. Most of us here eat more green leafy vegetables, eat more proteins, and we forget to tell them have some carbs, but just not as much as you used to have, because it comes in so many different forms, our snacks and just so many things. I don't even want to start talking about it. Now, Dr. Bland, let's talk about this new rage that's going on here.
Okay, the Ozempic, and you probably have heard that on TV. And this particular medication is called what we call a GLP-1 agonist. And what does that mean? So it is a medication that helps your body's own insulin work a little better. And so it also affects your brain, and that takes down some of that hunger. It also slows down your digestion so that you feel fuller longer. And as a result of all these things, you tend to control your blood sugar and you lose weight. And that's a benefit that we hadn't seen with many of our other medications that we had used in the past. That weight loss, and then that weight loss helps in other ways. It helps to lower your blood pressure. It helps in terms of your cholesterol. And so all of these things that we associate with diabetes, this particular medication helps with that. We're learning now that it helps with the kidneys. We're learning now that it helps with the heart, may be important in preventing the heart attacks and some of the strokes. So it really is a great drug. And generally, when we put the patients on this particular medication, we can get their A1C down below 7, in addition to the weight loss. Now, I know a lot of people use it who may not even have diabetes just to lose weight. Now, it is not supposed to be, Ozempic is not for those who don't have diabetes to lose weight. Now, they do have another type. It's the same molecule, what we call semaglutide, which is called Wegovy, and that is for weight loss. So if you don't have diabetes, then you need to take the Wegovy. But if you have diabetes, Ozempic is the medication that you should be taking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we don't know about any bad things that happen probably because it's kind of new. It seems to be okay so far.
So far, it seems to be really a wonder drug. Now, some people, when you start, you may have a little bit of upset stomach. We usually try to start slow and gradually build you up. And so we usually put you on a very low dose for about 4 weeks. Usually it's 0.25 milligrams. And if you're not having a lot of side effects like nausea or vomiting, sometimes you have a little constipation, we increase it up to the 0.5. And then as you're tolerating it more, you need maybe the 1 or the 2 milligram once a week. It's a once-a-week injection, and most people can handle that once-a-week injection. The only caveat that I have is that if you stop the medication, your blood sugars tend to go up and your weight tends to go up.
Comes right back. So it looks like a lifelong treatment for those of us born with a diabetes-type body, because all bodies don't get diabetes. Some do, some don't.
Yes. So that is one of the downsides of it, is that you stop it. And I've seen that in patients where, they get their A1Cs down. They're at 6.5. They're so happy. Well, I think I can just handle it with diet and exercise. And then, they come back and 3 or 4 months later, it's up to 9. So, we have to, consider that when we're managing our patients. Now, I guess if you really intense and you're intense in terms of your exercise and you're intense in your diabetes, you may be able to maintain it, but that has been one of the challenges.
Well, you said that the drug has an impact on your brain to make you not feel as hungry. So, that's an important factor right there. So if your brain is not having that impact, then you're going to get hungry, and that's going to tend to make you want to eat again. I'm thinking that's probably why when you get off of it, you go back to your normal.
Yes.
All right. Well, Dr. Bland, just give the listeners a closing comment. That'll be it for us today. I wanted people to hear from you because, diabetes is one of my big things I like to talk about on my radio show.
Well, my closing comment is diabetes can be controlled. And that I want your listeners to understand, that you have the power, you can do it, you can maintain your blood sugars, work with your doctor, work with your dietitian, take your medications, and monitor your results. Always ask what your A1C is, ask what your blood pressure is, and ask what your cholesterol is when you go visit your physician.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bland. It's always great to have you on the show. And we'll talk to you again soon. Probably I'll call you in October for, I think it's October or November, National Diabetes Month.
Yeah, November is the National Diabetes Month.
Well, I'll call you back again in November.
Okay.
Thank you for being my guest. I'm going to close now with this. Words, thoughts, and deeds have a boomerang effect. So be careful what you send out. Scripture says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. So from the Lyndia Grant Show, think on these things. We hope that you'll come back and talk to us again next week. Good day.
Thank you for listening to the Lyndia Grant Show. Think on these things with your host, Lyndia Grant.